Hi, Zach Shipley
I'm Dawn Shipley.
from the Level Up Real Estate team in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the greater Milwaukee metro area. So we're chatting today about what someone needs to do, maybe a first-time home buyer, but also just like anybody who's looking at buying a house. What are the steps they need to take? So we're going to give you some takeaways, some important stuff you need to think about, some things you need to prepare for, so you can be best prepared to get that started. So let's talk about it.
Perfect.
Someone is looking to buy a house for the first time in 2025. What's step one?
That's a great question.
What's 1A?
That's perfect. So, and sometimes people will ask us to, how soon should I get started with these steps? I think that's an important. So if someone is, it may look a little bit different if somebody is moving in January or February versus if they're moving in September or October. So there is a timeline variation depending on where somebody is in that process. Is your lease up at some point? But I would say that for step one would be getting all of your ducks in a row. And then there's a lot of sub points for that. So get the ducks in a row. What are the ducks though?
Yeah, what's a duck in this case? Is a duck getting like my pre-approval, or is a duck just like starting to like setting up a realtor.com search?
That's a great question. Okay, so step one, I think being financially ready is, that's a lot of times people will speak to us and not be sure yet what to do financially.
Yeah.
So step one would be to make sure that you have a lender resource to talk to. We're not lenders. We don't advise on what someone is going to need for a down payment and closing costs and what their monthly payments will be. We can speak in generalities.
That doesn't stop people from asking us every single time, though, and it's not bad. Like if I'm the only realtor resource or real estate resource you have, by all means ask me those questions. And if it's something I can answer authoritatively, I'll probably will. But for the most part, I'm probably gonna say, hey, that's a good question for your lender, like what your cash to close is, or what your monthly payment is going to be for a $300,000 house. I'm like, well, I don't know how.
I can give you generalities, and I can use a principal. I can use a mortgage calculator like anybody else. I can plug in the taxes, but I'm not going to be able to accurately tell you, are you paying PMI? How much will that be? There's a lot of variables that go into this. What would your actual cash to close amount be? So step one is talking to that lender. So get all of your financial questions answered. You can figure out what your budget will be. You can figure out what you're comfortable with for not only a down payment amount, but also that monthly. Sometimes the amount you're pre-approved for is not always going to be the amount you are comfortable with. Maybe you're pre-approved for much more, but like what's realistic for you? So being able to have those questions answered by a professional is usually a very important early step. So even if you're thinking September, being connected with somebody who can answer those questions now is a great place to get started.
So on that note, is there any time that's like too early or too late?
No, I would say that you start where you are. What would be too early? Maybe a year in advance is too early. But at the same time, if you know you have things you're working on your credit report, you're not sure how much is even realistic, and I need to start saving money now for a down payment. What do I need? There's a certain level of just getting that information that's going to be helpful more than a year out. But if you're thinking this is the year, and I'm assuming in this scenario that you probably have some money saved up ready to go, or maybe you're someone who will qualify for a great first-time home buyer program, and you just need to worry about closing costs. So the long answer is that's the long answer. The short answer is it's never too early to kind of get some information.
Yeah, because not to contradict you at all, but I was like, my mind immediately went to like, what are some scenarios where you would maybe take more than a year to get ready? New construction. Sometimes building a house takes a year.
Yes.
Or like you have to find the lot first and then hire the builder. It's like, we can help you with those things, but it's not the same as like, oh, there's a house that's already built and you can close in 45 days. It's like, that's the short version of this, but the long answer is building something. Or a long distance relocation. Now, we've helped some folks move state to state very quickly, sometimes in under 30 days. But realistically, if someone is going to be moving from like one of the coast to Milwaukee or from the south or some other area, it doesn't hurt for them to start getting an idea of like what's going on in Milwaukee, like what are the neighborhoods or areas that they're going to meet most of their needs,
and what is a realistic budget in those neighborhoods?
Oh yeah.
So are you buying a house? There's such a wide variety based on location and what they're looking for in a house.
Yeah.
So just to figure out what's realistic. So long distance moves. That's a great reason. So it's never bad. Or if, let's say, somebody had a bankruptcy, or they know they have some credit issues, then it's probably better to start early. With that process and kind of get that information, figure out what is their actual realistic timeline for those things to fall off to make buying a home possible. Yeah,
perfect. And so when you're talking to a lender, we're happy to provide that kind of resource to somebody to connect them with a lender. They're gonna be able to answer all those financial questions. What are the questions that a realtor like us? What are the questions that they should be asking us, or
what questions should you ask a realtor, and not the? So a realtor is going to help you narrow it down where it is that you are. What's in your wish list? Where are you buying? What's a realistic price? What are we seeing in the market in those areas? So kind of like you said, when you have people moving from out of state, and there's such a difference in neighborhoods and cities. Real estate is hyper local. So someone who can be your expert in the field to tell you what's realistic, what they're seeing, what would you have to do to get an offer accepted? Is something a good investment at that price point in that neighborhood? Those are things that a realtor can help you with. Coming back to finances, I think it's important not only to have your mortgage possibilities, finances in order, but also to have some of your personal finances in order. So something we've seen a couple of times, it doesn't happen often, luckily, but sometimes what if you close on a home and then something happens? The furnace was in good condition at the home inspection. We didn't foresee any issues, but it's a cold day and suddenly the furnace isn't working. You need to have somebody out. Maybe it needs a repair, maybe it needs a replacement. But those unexpected things that come up anytime you own a home, they're your responsibility now, which is different for people who are renting to go from that level of responsibility. So having a financial stronghold, a buffer here.
That's an important tip for somebody who's saving, because your instinct is to save for the down payment, because every bit you save in the down payment can go towards making your mortgage payment a little bit lower. But if it's going to make a difference of like, oh, it's going to lower your payment by $20 or even $50 a month, oh, that's huge. You'll save so much money over the long term. But if now it means you're house poor, you don't have enough money to make that emergency repair or that upgrade that would really make your house.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So like if you have like an extra $5,000, it means like, oh, now you can repair the roof, or now you can freshen up the bathroom. Well, those are major things that will actually add value to your house.
So planning for both. And to have, especially if you're looking to buy something that is a fixer-upper, how long are you willing to live in a house with carpet that is you're unhappy with? What can you do to make that living situation better?
I think a lot of people do ask for fixer-uppers or are willing to do a little bit of work, and I think that's also something to consider. Like, what stuff are you qualified to do yourself? What stuff you're comfortable doing yourself? Do you have a dad, a cousin, a friend who can help you with electrical or help you with putting up a fence or something like that? Or do you really need something move-in ready because you are not qualified to do those things?
Right. And everybody's at a different level. It's good to know yourself and what you're willing to do. And paint is different from moving walls or doing some major changes to the plumbing system. So just knowing what your limits are. Are you looking for? Paint is always a good thing to plan for. Most people like to paint when they come into a new home.
I think it's also you should be prepared to kind of roll up your sleeves and start to do stuff yourself. You may want something really move-in ready. I think about our first house, and it was move-in ready. Like, we moved in, like everything was there. However, the first time the first appliance we bought was a washer and dryer, and the dryer came and I installed it, using YouTube videos and everything else. It's like, okay, I figured out like where the duct's going, where the hook up the gas line and all the other stuff. So like, I'm willing to learn. It's on the job training, basically, willing to learn how to do some stuff, because that's going to ultimately benefit me in the long run. So the next time we buy a dryer, I am comfortable installing it. maybe not carrying it down the steps to the basement, but
know your limits.
But the delivery person can bring it down there,
yes.
that I can plug it in.
Yes, yes. Well, and YouTube video, there's so many great resources out there. YouTube videos are a great resource. There's articles, there's magazines, there's different, whatever avenue someone wants to use to learn about how to do home maintenance, home improvements. The resources are out there if they want to learn.
And I think there's a lot of criticism generationally, and I don't want to get into a big thing, but like some of the older generations say, oh, younger people, millennials, Gen Z, unprepared. They don't have these skills. It's like we don't actually really need to have these skills because they're so easily learned and found on all these online resources. We don't have to go back to like a home ec class we took 15, 20 years ago. We can go straight into like, okay, I'll look this stuff on YouTube.
You can find the right spot.
I'll find the right spot. And weirdly, it's not just the like how to hook up a dryer. It's like you'll find like how to hook up this specific Maytag dryer. So it can be because you can find the manuals and everything online. So as long as you're willing to learn and know that buying the house and getting the key on closing day is not like the end of it, you can be that. So the preparedness is a lot of mental preparation, knowing that that it's not going to be done. It's going to be an ongoing process.
That's a great point. Something else I was thinking that buyers should do as they are in that discovery process, you're trying to figure out your budget, you're saving some money for emergencies, and just figuring out what's important to you as a buyer. I think that's an important part of the process that sometimes people don't focus on too. So figuring out what is not only on your wish list, but also what's on your must-have list, and then your nice to have list. I think that's an important distinction for people to make. If you need a certain number of bedrooms to house your family, that's probably a must have. But is a large kitchen, is that, if you're in the right neighborhood that you're wanting to be in, you have the right size home at the right price, is that kitchen something that you're willing to compromise on? Yeah.
Or even things like there's a lot of older houses in the Milwaukee area that have eat-in kitchens. There's no room for the 10-foot dining table there. So do you need a formal dining room? When you think about not just where your family is now, but where your family might be in the future. We've got a 2-car garage. Well, when your kid turns 16, 17, they get their own car. Where do they park?
And is that important?
Right.
And so that's a big question. And something we tell buyers often is, I'm not going to tell you what's a deal breaker. You're going to know what's a deal breaker for you, but just being clear on what is and isn't is a really important step.
I think another thing worth mentioning is that you sometimes are looking for your dream house, and maybe if it is like your second or third house, maybe it's the only house you ever buy. However, I think some people really do get hung up on some of those nice to haves and thinking that they're must haves. And you can also realize that like you can find the house that's going to be good for you for the next 5 to 7 to 10 years, and then graduate by selling that house and then moving to the bigger one that is in the other neighborhood or other town or something like that, that more fills out that American dream type, this is my house and my land, etc. You're not, it's the idea of the family house that's passed by generation to generation really doesn't happen anymore.
No, occasionally it does, but most people do start with that starter home, and graduate, use the equity in that home once they've built that equity up in that 5, 7, 10 years to buy their dream home. It's a great point.
Yeah, and so keeping an eye on what's going to build equity at that house and how you can best position it, make the upgrades that are going to be good for you, but also maybe good for the next person. Also really important. So Dawn, to wrap up, is there anything else that either first-time buyer, home buyer, move up, or maybe somebody just moving to the Milwaukee area, anything else that they should know to start?
I don't think anything additional. I think really they should be assembling their team of experts. So find your realtor, find your lender. A great local lender is what we always recommend. And then get your finances in order. Figure out that wish list. Yeah. Those are some great steps to take to get started.
I think an additional tip that I always give people is when you are assembling that team, cell phone numbers. This may sound obvious, But when you're working with me as your agent, obviously you have my cell phone number. When you're working with any kind of contractor, any bank person, whatever, if all you have is their office line and you can't reach them on a Saturday, it's not worth it. So make sure you get their cell phone numbers, because you want to be able to reach them at any time, and they're gonna match you on that communication.
And a local realtor resource should be able to help you find a really great local lender too.
Absolutely. All right, so thank you very much for tuning in. Obviously, you can join us each month on our YouTube channel, and check us out at levelupwi.com to browse for your next Milwaukee home.